After being trafficked, Mom became mentally ill from grief. And Dad passed away without forgiving Emily, who had been with me. Overwhelmed by guilt, Emily swallowed sleeping pills in the bathtub. My spirit tried desperately to save her, only to awaken reborn in the year of my abduction. Brian took cash from Dan, the trafficker, sneering. "Sell my niece far away. Don't let her return." In death, I remembered our loving family, progressive parents Ben and Ellie who cherished Emily and me equally. Sold to mountain villagers during a fever-induced stupor. I spent over a decade in a cellar. After bearing a son, they burned me alive as ritual sacrifice. Returning as a spirit, I found my parents buried long ago. Emily had searched years for me until hopelessness consumed her. "Mom, Dad, I can't go on." She wept over family photos, swallowing pills. If only I hadn't let go of Emma's hand that day. "No," I screamed uselessly through her fading form. White light engulfed me, returning consciousness to a smoke-filled truck. My blood ran cold seeing Dan, the trafficker, counting blood money. Brian's deceptively honest face appeared through cigarette haze. "My older niece got away. Take the younger one, easier to trick. $300. That's what destroyed our family." Dan chuckled. "Selling your own nieces? Bold move. Who'll tell?" Brian spat. "My brother became rich but wouldn't loan me $10,000. Obsessed with these useless girls when my son carries our legacy. Now he'll raise my boy instead. Because of him, I'd rotted in darkness last life. Now, drugged but alert, I memorized landmarks. A porcelain-skinned boy, Luke, lay unconscious nearby, another victim. When the truck stopped, a scarf-worn woman asked Dan, "Any boys this time?" $1. 000. As she paid, I grabbed her sleeve, sobbing, "Mom, don't separate me from my brother." The awakened Luke played along, wailing for his sister. The woman's resolve cracked. Every scrap of dignity burned away. This was my only path home. Dan seized the opportunity to pitch. "Take her home as a companion. Girls aren't expensive and can help with chores. Barb, your husband's helped me before. How about I let you have her for $500? The woman finally relented, and I was placed in a bamboo basket. She covered us tightly with cloth, perhaps not feeling threatened by two unconscious children, leaving us on the ground when she went to the restroom. "Stay put. This area's crawling with kidnappers," she warned. When footsteps faded, I shook Luke awake. "Want to go home?" He nodded silently. "Follow me and don't make a sound. One noise and I leave you behind." I growled, contorting my face fiercely. We scrambled from the basket and disappeared into the crowd. Reporting to local police wasn't an option. They might be in cahoots with the traffickers. The risk was too great. At the bus station, I spent our last dollar on 2 tickets. The ticket agent frowned at our age. "We're meeting Dad at the county station," I chirped, squeezing Luke's hand with an angelic smile. In the county seat, penniless but determined to reach the city, I smudged dirt on my face and begged. Luke's stomach growled constantly, yet he never complained. "Home's close," I promised, though we sometimes dug through trash bins for leftovers. When we finally scraped enough for train tickets, I shadowed a couple boarding the train. As doors began closing, a mob stormed the station. Barb pointed at us shrieking, "My babies! They're stealing my babies!" Her accomplice tried pushing us off. "Kids shouldn't wander. Go with your mother." Panic surged as rough hands grabbed my collar. Memories flashed, Mom clutching my clothes, Dad's snow-white hair in my past life. I sank teeth into Barb's wrist, clinging to the railing. "Liar. My mom doesn't look like you. Help. Kidnappers." The slap echoed through the carriage. Her accomplice kicked me sprawling. Passengers watched impassively until Sophie stood, her braids swaying as she challenged. "Why haven't you noticed the boy's asthma attack? You kept smothering him." The chief conductor approached as she declared, "I doubt you're their real mother." Luke's flushed face and labored breathing confirmed her words. As staff dragged the traffickers away, Barb screeched. The girl's my husband's defective brat from his first marriage. But the crowd's suspicion had shifted. Sophie's clear voice cut through. Then why didn't you know your son couldn't breathe? When rescuers pried Luke from Barb's arms, his wheezing breaths condemned her. The train doors sealed shut on the traffickers' curses, carrying us toward freedom. Saved. As the train hummed to life and began moving, my anxious heart finally settled. I crawled over to Sophia Williams and tugged at her pant leg. Please, save him. Don't worry. She nodded, opening her medical kit to treat Luke. The conductor carried me to an empty seat, gently wiping blood from my mouth with a tissue. Does it hurt? Your face is swollen. No. Those marks were from fighting the monsters, badges of my defiance. Sweetheart. Do you know where you live? Yes. I whispered. How could I forget? That home haunted my dreams through 2 lifetimes. Even in my previous deranged state, my soul had clawed its way back, too late. Then. But now. Tears blurred the landscape rushing past the window. Mom, Dad, just wait a little longer. Sophie turned out to be a medical student returning from visiting family. When I asked why she'd risked helping strangers, dimples appeared as she smiled. What if? She said. Haloed in afternoon light. If I messed up, I'd apologize. But if I was right? Then I saved not just you two, but whole families. Isn't that why I became a doctor? I hugged her like clutching hope itself, the first light piercing my darkness. At the station, Sophie blinked in surprise. You're also heading to S-City? My home's elsewhere. Luke's, I don't know. Let me take you. She offered, laughing when I hesitated. Her student ID materialized like a magic trick. See? Just making sure you don't get lost again. She left us at the police station with a parting hair ruffle and warm pastries. Safe travels. Kiddo. Officer Mike frowned at Luke clinging to me. The older one's easy. But this little guy. The boy stared up with liquid eyes. Sissy? I glared, willing him silent. Officer. Send us both to my home. His family can collect him there. To prevent more stolen childhoods. I described the trafficker in ruthless detail. You remember all that? Officer Mike marveled. Because I almost never saw my parents again. I muttered, fists clenching. The train carried us home to Wutong County, to where Mom's laughter once filled courtyards. Where Dad's workshop smelled of sawdust and safety. Luke's small hand stayed curled in mine. Almost there. Just a little further. Standing before the door adorned with red blessings. Sudden hometown jitters gripped me. If counting my past life, I hadn't seen Ben and Mom in over a decade. Summoning courage, I twisted the knob only to find it locked. A thin layer of dust coating the handle. Neighbors peered out at the commotion. Who's there? The Johnsons went to visit relatives in the countryside. They called. Of course, they'd still be combing the area where I'd disappeared. Emily later told me Mom would stand on streets clutching my photo. Interrogating strangers even after losing her mind. Have you seen my little girl? Round face. Big eyes. About this tall? I miss her so. Ben neglected his budding business. Silver strands multiplying as he haunted train stations. Terrified of missing my return. 3 years after my disappearance. Mom succumbed to grief. That November, Ben turned away from Emily on his deathbed. Rasping "Find your sister, bring Emma home," with his final breath. Losing both parents within months. Emily's sobs echoed through the empty house our cousin Brian soon seized, evicting her during the first snowstorm. His true colors emerged like ink spreading through water. Though night fell, I raced through muddy country roads toward the lone lit window. Years later, I'd shudder remembering what I nearly missed. My nails dug into palms as Brian's voice slithered through the wall. Brother, I've got leads to find Emma. Just needs $10. 000. Ben's weary laugh cracked. Brian, if I had that money. Liquidate the factory. Borrow from villagers. Brian's faux concern curdled my stomach. I hear traffickers break kids' bones for begging rings. The longer we wait. I slammed the door. Trembling. Dad. Mom. Don't trust him. Time froze as I drank in their living faces, vibrant. Not frozen in funeral portraits. Then Mom's arms swallowed me whole. Her tears raining on my hair. Emma, my M, where were you? Ben's calloused hand hovered like a threat before gently cradling my head. Shouldn't wander, his gruff voice shattered. You're home. Their silhouettes seemed smaller. Shoulders bearing invisible weights. I whispered the words that had haunted 2 lifetimes, M's home. Nearby. Emily stood trembling, not yet crushed by decades of guilt. Just a terrified teen. I clasped her shaking hands. Emily. Her dam broke. I'm sorry. Emma. I shouldn't have let go. Not your fault. The forgiveness she deserved for 50 years finally came. Through 2 lifetimes and countless winters. I'd found my spring. I looked at the figure trying to sneak away and confronted him directly. Uncle Brian. Don't you have anything to say? If not, I might have to speak for you. The man halted, forcing an awkward laugh. Emma's return calls for celebration. I was just fetching a cleansing basin to ward off evil spirits. My parents finally snapped out of their daze. Sensing tension in my tone. Tilting my head with feigned innocence. I pressed. Then why was Uncle Brian sitting with those traffickers? He said he'd sell me to the mountains. Brian's ruddy face turned purple. What nonsense! He bellowed, tugging at Ben's sleeve. Ben. You know I've been working tirelessly for your family. Ben remained silent, staring at his brother as if seeing him for the first time. Mom knelt beside me. Sweetheart. Could you have mistaken? No. I stated clearly. He said they should sell Emily too. So you could raise his son instead. Ben's face darkened instantly. His fist connected with Brian's jaw, lifting the shorter man by his collar. I quit school to fund your education. This is how you repay me? Brian spat blood. Venom in his eyes. Your charity? Please. You failed school yourself. In truth, Ben had been the better student. The dam burst as Brian spewed decades of resentment. You deserve to rot in poverty. Why should you prosper? And these worthless girls, my Jake deserves everything. Mom slapped him twice, cursing. Your son's none of our damn business. A shrill voice interrupted. Enough. Grandma Ellie emerged with yawning Jake. Ben. How dare you attack family over trivial matters? Trivial? Ben's voice shook. He tried to sell my daughters. Girls can't carry the family name. Ellie sniffed, helping Brian up. Better sell them and adopt Jake. The boy clapped. Sell bad girls. All mine now. I nearly laughed at the absurdity. Why did Ellie favor Brian over her own son? Emboldened, Brian sneered through swollen lips. Pay me $10,000 or I disown you. Usually family-oriented. Ben shocked everyone by chasing after Mom, who carried Emily and me toward the door. Lydia. Wait. Outside. We found Luke sitting quietly on the porch stones. Whose child? Mom began. Oh. I grinned. Mom? Dad. This is Luke. He'll be staying with us. The fair-skinned boy smiled shyly, his gaze never leaving me. Back home, I downplayed our escape from traffickers. But my parents knew, 2 children surviving that hell required miracles. Mom tearfully hugged us. My poor babies, clumsily wiping Mom's tears with a tissue. I asked. Emma is okay. Can Luke stay with us for now? Would Ben and Mom think I'd overstepped? Another mouth to feed meant more expenses. Yet instead of scolding me, they praised my kindness. Our Emma has such a good heart. Mom said softly, her eyes glistening. During the years they'd lost me, they'd clung to the fragile hope of our family reuniting. His parents must be desperate to find him too. Ben ruffled my hair decisively. Luke stays with us while we check for missing child reports nearby. Even Emily chimed in. I'll help watch the kids. Having endured the same agony, they now wanted to shield other shattered families. One small act could bring countless children home. Warmth flooded through me at their support. Yet it sharpened my hatred for the man who'd torn us apart. When I exposed Brian's involvement with child traffickers, Outraged parents descended like storm winds. They beat him bloody, demanding answers. At first Brian denied everything. But under pressure, he cracked, admitting he'd brokered several deals. The village turned venomous. Neighbors pelted his house with rotten eggs until the walls crumbled. Petitions circulated to exile him. Families terrified he'd snatch their children next. Driven out, Brian groveled at our doorstep. "Big brother, please," he wailed. Ben threw open the door and punched him square in the jaw. "Rot in hell." The next day, Ellie arrived shrieking curses, brandishing ancestral tablets. "Ungrateful whelps. Your uncle saved Ben's life," I cut her off sweetly. "Grandma, why do you keep hurting your own son to protect that monster?" Her wrinkled face twitched before she slammed down a legal document. "Sign this pardon within 3 days or I'll ruin your reputation everywhere." 2 days later, loan sharks descended. Mr. Gao, a hulking enforcer, dragged Brian away like trash. "Thought you could hide, old bastard? Where's my 10 grand? Brian whimpered. "And my brother has money, funny." Gao sneered. "He says you sold your niece for cash." A sickening crunch followed as Brian's leg gave way. Without Dad's embezzled funds this time. The debt collectors left him broken, a one-fingered cripple scavenging in alleys. When the police called weeks later, I walked into the precinct with my parents' hands clasping mine. This time, I calmly pointed at Brian's mugshot. Dan and Barb, the traffickers, sat cuffed nearby. Investigators traced Dan's network to multiple hideouts, freeing dozens of women and children. My butterfly effect had rippled farther than I'd dreamed. Ellie became frantic when Brian got arrested. She ransacked our pantry, smashing jars of rice, screeching about family duty. "Your uncle only has this son." Ben's voice shook with decades of suppressed rage. "I've repaid that debt my whole life letting him walk over me. But harming my children?" Mom squeezed his shoulder as Emily and I hugged his trembling arms. Ellie never answered my question. Some wounds fester too deep for words. To resolve the lingering doubts in our hearts, we drove back to our rural hometown that weekend. This time, however, there was nowhere to stay. The house had been completely demolished. Fortunately, the elderly neighbor Mrs. Liv Clark, whose granddaughter had gone missing last year, harbored intense hatred toward Brian and was eager to expose all his secrets. The moment we asked, she spilled everything with a bombshell. "That Brian, he's actually the child of your mother and your uncle." My parents, Ben and his wife, were stunned. I'd anticipated shocking revelations, but nothing this explosive. Mrs. Clark adjusted her glasses and pointed at Ben. "You poor soul. Your father couldn't conceive, so they brought you home during a stormy night. They claimed you were adopted. But who really knows?" Dad stood frozen before murmuring. No wonder Mom always favored him. The childhood mystery finally unraveled decades later. Grandma Ellie's scheme backfired spectacularly. Not only did she fail to obtain leniency, but she also lost Ben's last shred of familial affection. When she tried causing trouble again, security guards who'd been alerted beforehand chased her away before she even reached the doorstep. At the trial, Brian sat at the defendant's table while I observed from the gallery. Upon receiving a life sentence, he wailed dramatically, "I was just young and foolish. What's wrong with helping poor folks' children find better homes with wealthy families?" Barb received a lighter sentence but shouted hoarsely, "All I wanted was a son. Now after 10 years, my husband won't even look at me." The ringleader Dan and others got death penalties, turning on each other in court by recounting horrific crimes. Many victim families wept openly. These criminals claimed innocence. But what about the stolen children? The shattered parents? Watching coldly, I felt no triumphant vengeance, only gratitude for my intact family. Profit-driven crimes deserve full punishment. Without Brian's interference and my disappearance, Ben's electronics factory thrived. Part of our profits now fund product labels featuring missing children's photos with the tagline, "Help more precious ones come home." As the trafficking case gained national attention, Luke's grandparents arrived in Wutong County, vibrant silver-haired elders who burst into tears seeing their articulate grandson. Our sweet Luke can talk again. Though the boy hid behind me initially, he gradually warmed to them with my help. I learned Luke came from wealth. But his mother had jumped from a rooftop during pregnancy after catching his CEO father rekindling an affair with his first love. The CEO remarried his soulmate immediately, abandoning Luke, who developed asthma and selective mutism after witnessing his mother's death. The grandparents had taken custody until recently, when the father ditched Luke at an amusement park to rush to his mistress' hospital call, making the boy easy prey for traffickers. My memories of previous lives fade. But I know Brian receives special attention in prison. The night Luke left, Emily crawled into my bed sobbing about a nightmare where I never returned. In her dream, our parents died heartbroken after surrendering everything to Brian and Ellie, leaving her homeless and alone. When she finally found me years later, I was in a small urn. Nightmares are inversions of reality, I whispered, rubbing her back. Emma's home now. None of that will happen. The fading memories sharpened again as I held my trembling sister. Yes. Our fates had diverged completely. Years later, both Emily and I got into our dream universities. She studied criminal investigation while I chose journalism. Meanwhile, Luke had gone global as a renowned piano prodigy. On this day when I should have died at 18, I spent a fortune hiring people to accompany me into remote mountains under the guise of gathering news footage. But my real mission was revenge. The familiar mountain village held regular sacrificial rituals. Backward, impoverished and superstitious, every household here purchased wives from human traffickers. When they lacked sacrificial offerings, they'd use women who couldn't bear children. In my previous life, I'd been one of them. As the villagers became engrossed in their ritual, I freed all women trapped in cellars. Who are you? What's this? They demanded. Without wasting words, I had my hired team swap the villagers with the women bound on the altar. Since you worship deities, I declared, experience becoming offerings yourselves. Their agonized screams and curses dissolved into black smoke amidst flames. At dawn, I gently took the hand of a dazed girl and told the survivors, you can go home now. May every lost child find their way back. May we all grow toward sunlight with our own dreams. Previous life epilogue, my name is Emily. I had an adorable younger sister named Emma. When I was 8, I let go of her hand to fetch snacks inside. She vanished before I returned. Mom cried until blindness claimed her eyes and her awareness of me. Dad died still blaming me, gripping my hand to demand I bring Emma home. I promised, dedicating my life to that vow. After my parents' deaths, the Johnson family expelled me. That's when I discovered Brian's true nature, a wolf in sheep's clothing. His kind facade masking rotten corruption. I dropped out using my meager savings, working exploitative child labor jobs. I needed money to survive and search for Emma. Every lead took me somewhere, always ending in disappointment. Then I met a boyfriend who took me to his mountain home. In that cellar, I found Emma's childhood stone bracelet, matching mine that Mom had given us. Casually inquiring, I learned rebellious wives here got chained in darkness until submission. The defiant ones became ritual livestock, burned alive in stone altars during sacrifices. Was this Emma's fate? Clenching grief and rage, I collected evidence and Emma's altar remains. During their ritual feast, I poisoned the cooking water with toxic herbs before torching the mountains, burying Emma's altar near Mom and Dad's grave. I whispered, wait for me a little longer. Emma, when I send all monsters to hell, we'll reunite. Brian and the traffickers got arrested. We were young and foolish. They pleaded. I countered. What about Emma? She never got to grow up. What did my parents do to deserve dying in their 30s? Every criminal received death sentences. With justice served, I filled the bathtub with cold water and swallowed sleeping pills. As consciousness faded, a hazy figure seemed to rush toward me. Has Emma come? If time could rewind, I'd trade everything to bring you home.